In order to achieve redemption for all the crimes he has committed and regain his freedom, Loki decides to ally himself with the Timekeepers to protect the universe, but soon discovers that this place hides many more secrets than he could have imagined. Today we're going to recap the story of the series, Loki, from 2021. After stealing the Tesseract, Loki flees to the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, but is followed by agents of the Time Variance and ends up being arrested for committing crimes against the sacred timeline. After capturing the prisoner, B-15 orders her team to restart that timeline and takes Loki to the Time Variance Authority. When he arrives at the agency, the variant tries to run away, but B-15 manages to bring him back by means of the collar she has put around his neck. The woman then puts the prisoner into an elevator and, after going through all the bureaucratic processes, Loki is sent to the courtroom. He is then greeted by Miss Minutes, who has the task of explaining to the new prisoners why they are there. According to the talking clock, a long time ago there was a great multiversal war in which countless timelines battled for supremacy. This war almost resulted in the destruction of the world, but with the emergence of the Timekeepers, the entire multiverse was organized into a single timeline, known as the Sacred Timeline. Since then, the Timekeepers have taken on the mission of protecting and preserving the flow of time for everyone. When someone deviates from the path created by the Keepers, they are called a variant and are detained by the TVA in order to prevent new branches in time from forming. After being captured, the prisoner must be tried for his crimes and serve his sentence. If they refuse to do so, that variant will be reset and cease to exist forever. When he appears before Judge Ravana, Loki pleads not guilty to all charges and tries to use his powers to escape, but soon discovers that his magic doesn't work in that place. By order of the judge, Loki is about to be reset when Agent Mobius appears and convinces Ravana to free the prisoner. His plan is to use Loki's skills to capture an escaped variant, but before he does, Mobius decides to interrogate him. If he hadn't taken the Tesseract, Loki would have been taken to a cell in Asgard and accidentally caused the perishment of his own mother. According to the sacred line, this was the correct succession of events, but Loki ended up deviating from his purpose and was therefore taken to the TVA. While the prisoner is trying to assimilate all this information, B-15 appears and asks Mobius to help her solve a problem. Minutes later, when the agent returns to the room, he realizes that Loki has disappeared and asks for the help of B-15 and her team to look for him. Meanwhile, the fugitive breaks into the office and threatens Casey into handing over the Tesseract. At that moment, Loki discovers that there are hundreds of infinity gems in that place, but their power cannot be used while he is there. Soon after, B-15 and her team show up, so Loki has to hurry to escape and uses the remote control on his collar to take him back to the interrogation room. Through the TV, Loki manages to access his entire original timeline and discovers that, in the future, he will be eliminated by Thanos. After this discovery, the God of Lies is surprised by B-15 and attacks her in order to escape. Using the remote control, Loki removes his collar and puts it around B-15's neck, who now has the chance to taste her own poison. However, instead of running away, he decides to accept his fate and be reset, as he has realized that he will not be able to return to his timeline. Seeing that Loki has given up on life, Mobius decides to open up and asks for his support in stopping a variant that is eliminating TVA agents. According to Mobius, the variant they are hunting is a female version of Loki, so the best chance of capturing her is with the help of the God of Lies himself. In 1985, in the state of Wisconsin, TVA agents detect a temporal anomaly and show up in the middle of a festival to begin their investigation. However, seeing her enemies approaching, Sylvie invades Commander C-20's mind and begins to control her so that she attacks the members of her own team. After eliminating all her opponents, the woman captures the commander and travels to the next timeline. Meanwhile, Loki is recruited as an honorary member of the agency and accompanies Mobius' team to the branch where his copy was last seen. However, the group soon discovers that the variant is no longer there, so B-15 restarts that timeline to destroy the branch. Upon returning to TVA headquarters, Mobius hands over a pile of files on Sylvie for Loki to investigate in an attempt to find some clue as to where she might be. After reading the report on Ragnarok, the apocalypse that destroyed Asgard, Loki discovers the strategy the variant is using to move through space-time without being discovered. To prevent her actions from causing temporal changes that expose her location, Sylvie hides in places that are about to suffer great destruction. This way, she can do whatever she wants, because her actions won't cause a branch in the timeline since that place and the people who live there will soon be destroyed. While trying to put the pieces together to predict the next place where the variant will hide, Loki convinces Mobius to take him to Italy, in the year 79 after Christ. To prove his theory, the god of lies causes great chaos in the village and warns that everyone there will soon be eliminated because the volcano is about to erupt. While Loki causes despair among the inhabitants, Mobius follows the timeline and realizes that, in fact, no branches are being created. After proving that pre-apocalyptic periods are the best places to hide, Loki helps Mobius map how many of these catastrophic events exist in history and tells him that Sylvie is hiding in Alabama in the year 2050. Believing that the god of lies may be right once again, Mobius tries to convince Ravonna to approve the mobilization of a task force to accompany him on this mission. Despite not believing anything that comes out of Loki's mouth, the woman decides to give her old friend a vote of confidence and sends a team of soldiers to help Mobius capture the variant. That night, B-15 and her team arrive in Alabama in the middle of a Class 10 hurricane and break into the warehouse of a store that is being used as a shelter for civilians. However, Sylvie manages to see them through the security cameras and plants a bomb to destroy the place before the hurricane reaches the store. While searching the site, the TVA agents split into two teams and Loki forms a duo with B-15. During the search, they come across a man tending the plants and the agent approaches him to question him. At this point, the suspect grabs her wrist and Sylvie manages to invade the woman's consciousness in order to communicate with Loki. Sylvie then transports her consciousness to one of the store's employees and Loki tries to make an alliance with her. The god of lies claims to be infiltrating the TVA to remove the timekeepers from power and asks the variant to join him on this mission. However, Sylvie refuses the invitation and says she has no interest in running the Time Variance Authority. When Mobius and his team find Commander C-20, they discover that she has been forced to reveal to Sylvie where the timekeepers are hiding. While B-15 is waking up from her trance, Loki is attacked by the store's security guard, whose mind is also being controlled. After defeating Loki in a duel, the man interrupts the power supply and Sylvie reveals her true identity just before the lights go out. When her plan is put into action, numerous ramifications begin to form at the same time and Sylvie flees after completing her mission. Seeing Mobius and the TVA agents approaching, Loki decides to follow her, as he doesn't want to risk being reset after failing in his mission. What he didn't realize was that Sylvie was on her way to TVA headquarters and the woman soon discovers that her powers are completely useless there. She therefore has to rely exclusively on her physical abilities to fend off the guards and uses the reset stick to get rid of them. When he finds her, Loki tries to capture the variant and, during the fight, Ravonna appears. Seeing her, Sylvie tries to take her male version hostage, but the plan doesn't work out as expected. So Loki uses temporal control to get them out of there. After this trip, the temp pad used to transport them is discharged and Sylvie doesn't know how to get it working again. At this point, the pair discover that they are trapped on Lamentus 1, in the year 2077, where the neighboring planet is about to collide with the moon. At the end of the destruction, there won't be any survivors left and if the variants don't get out of that place soon, they'll soon be eliminated. After finding a hiding place, the pair begin to think of a plan to return to Earth and decide to walk to the nearest town to recharge the temp pad. While trying to break into a trailer, Sylvie and Loki are surprised by a resident and discover that there is an evacuation ship about to leave the moon. In his disguise, Loki poses as one of the ship's guards and pretends to be escorting Sylvie. In this way, they both manage to enter and enjoy the perks offered only to the wealthiest who have managed to buy a ticket to enter the ship. However, it isn't long before the imposters are discovered, so they have to face the guards, but end up being thrown out. After the crash, the temp pad in Loki's pocket is destroyed and Sylvie is furious when she learns that she will be eliminated there. In a desperate attempt to escape, the couple walk for several hours until they reach the nearby town and have to dodge several meteors while trying to reach the Ark. However, the ship is destroyed before they can even get inside. Now that all her hopes of survival have been completely destroyed, Sylvie sits down to await her inevitable fate and tells him that, as a child, she too lived in Asgard. However, as soon as she created a major deviation in the sacred timeline by being born as the goddess of lies, TVA appeared, erased her reality and imprisoned her. Shortly after being captured, Sylvie managed to escape, stole a temp pad and fled. Since then, she has become a fugitive of time. When the planet and the moon begin to collide, Loki and Sylvie join hands to face elimination together and, at that moment, a new branch begins to form. Thanks to this, the TVA agents manage to find them and open a portal so that they can both return to the agency's headquarters. In doing so, they end up being sent to prison. At that moment, Loki observes his surroundings and realizes that he is back in Asgard. Suddenly, Sif appears with a lock of hair in her hands and strikes Loki to vent all her anger, since it was he who cut her hair. At this point, the God of Lies realizes that he is trapped in a bad memory from the past that has been stored in his subconscious, and this same loop repeats itself over and over again. After reliving the same memory several times, Loki receives a visit from Mobius and is summoned for questioning. During the conversation, he reveals that TVA is lying to all its employees because, while talking to Sylvie, Loki discovered that all the agents are variants who have had their timelines erased. However, both Mobius and the other agents are unaware of this. They believe they were created by the Timekeepers to do their job, but this is a big lie. Upon hearing this, Mobius believes that this is just another lie from the prisoner and reveals that he will soon suffer the same fate as Sylvie, who was reset that morning. When he discovers that his female version no longer exists, Loki sinks into deep sadness, but tries to hide his feelings so that Mobius doesn't discover the truth. However, the agent soon realizes that Loki has feelings for Sylvie and reveals that he has just lied to the God of Lies because the variant is still alive. Once again, Loki tries to convince Mobius that he is telling the truth and claims that all TVA agents have had their memories erased by being removed from their timeline. Upon hearing that he has been taken away from his family and had all the memories of his old life stolen, Mobius becomes thoughtful and calls the guards to take Loki back to prison. After leaving the interrogation, Mobius goes to Ravana's room to celebrate the closure of the case and begins to ask her some questions, but the woman tries to evade the answers. Meanwhile, B-15 takes Sylvie back to the place where she was found and reveals that when the variant invaded her head, she saw flashes of her past. At that moment, Sylvie reveals that the woman is also a variant and has had her life stolen by the Timekeepers. Although she doesn't want to accept this as the truth, B-15 can't deny the fact that she has some memories of her past and asks for Sylvie's help in bringing down the agency. Accessing the recording of Commander C-20's interrogation, Mobius discovers that she was reset by Ravana because she insisted on saying that she wanted to go back to her past life. After discovering that Loki was telling the truth, Mobius decides to visit him in prison and frees the prisoner. However, when they are on their way to Sylvie's cell, Ravana and her guards appear and Mobius is reset. Loki and Sylvie are then taken to the Timekeeper's room. Just then, Hunter B-15 appears and frees the prisoners from their collars. Together, Loki and Sylvie fight the guards and Ravana also joins the battle to protect the Timekeepers. After defeating her, Sylvie throws her sword at one of the keepers and manages to lop off his head. At this point, the pair discover that those omniscient creatures are actually just robots and now they have to find out who created TVA. Seeing Sylvie frustrated, Loki tries to calm her down and is about to confess his feelings for her when he ends up being reset by Ravana. Furious, Sylvie attacks her enemy, but instead of eliminating Ravana, the Goddess of Lies decides to interrogate her to find out the whole truth about the place. After being disintegrated, Loki did not cease to exist. Instead, he was sent to a hostile planet, where he meets other variants of himself who are fleeing the monstrous storm that is approaching. Realizing that her life is in danger, Ravana reveals that Loki is still alive and promises to help Sylvie find him. According to Ravana, she too has been deceived, having dedicated years of her life to serving the Timekeepers and now discovering that they are a sham. Meanwhile, Loki tries to understand what is going on and is surprised to discover that all those people are different versions of himself who have also been reset. Not knowing how to survive alone in that place, Loki decides to follow his copies and asks for their help to return to TVA. With the help of Miss Minutes, Sylvie and Ravana find the timeline to which Loki was sent. Then the guards show up and Sylvie has to flee to avoid being captured again. However, when she realizes that she is surrounded, she makes a risky decision and decides to reset herself to meet Loki. While stuck in hiding listening to the sad stories that caused his variants to be reset, Loki decides it's time to act. To get out of there, the God of Lies knows he has to eliminate Alioth, the monster causing the storm. So he decides to leave to start his escape plan and discovers that there are several other locusts scattered around the world. Meanwhile, Sylvie is trying to escape from Alioth, who is fiercely pursuing her, destroying everything in his path. Luckily, just as she was about to be consumed by the purple cloud, Mobius appeared to rescue her and drove her far away from the storm. At that moment, the shelter where Loki was hiding is invaded by other variants and the gods of the lie begin to fight each other to decide who will take the throne. With the help of his elderly self, Loki and the guys who welcomed him when he arrived in that world managed to escape. Now that they no longer have a place to hide, the only option left is to help Loki stop Alioth. Otherwise, they'll all be wiped out by the storm. After a few minutes of walking, the group manages to get close to the enemy and sees Alioth destroying a warship full of sailors with extreme ease. Despite being terrified by this scene, Loki doesn't even consider giving up on his goal, as he refuses to hide forever. While on the lookout, he spots Sylvie getting out of a vehicle with Mobius and runs towards her. Relieved to know that his friends are okay, Loki reveals his plan to eliminate Alioth, but Sylvie says that that storm is the key to them finding the person responsible for creating TVA. So Sylvie's plan is to enchant the creature in order to get past it, but for that the goddess of lies will need help. Even though they have the chance to leave the place, the alternative versions of Loki decide to stay there, as it has been their home for many years. So they say goodbye to their new friends and Loki gets a sword as a parting gift. While Mobius returns to TVA with the help of the temp pad to expose all the lies, the couple begin their plan. At that moment, Loki tries to create a distraction and risks his life so that Sylvie has the chance to charm the monster. Initially, the strategy created by the duo doesn't work and they are about to be eliminated when the other variants return to help them. With his powers of illusionism, the old man creates a large city to serve as bait for Alioth, but ends up being eliminated. So Sylvie asks for her partner's help to invade the monster's mind. By uniting their powers, the couple finally manage to fulfill their objective and find the hidden passage within the storm. After crossing it, Sylvie and Loki come across a huge palace and are about to destroy the gates when the door opens by itself so they can enter. At this point, the invaders are greeted by Miss Minutes and she says that her boss is impressed. Questioning her about the identity of the person behind TVA, Loki discovers that the man in charge is known by a codename called He Who Remains. According to Miss Minutes, this is the entity that created everything and wants to offer the couple a deal. After a few adjustments, He Who Remains managed to find a way to insert Sylvie and Loki back into the timeline. That way, they can both live the life they've always dreamed of, without disturbing TVA's work. If he accepts the deal, Loki will have the chance to defeat Thanos and take the throne of Asgard alongside Sylvie. However, even knowing that this is a tempting offer, the couple decide to turn down the deal and continue their mission to eliminate the TVA commander. While walking through the mansion, Sylvie and Loki finally manage to find him and the man invites them to his office. As Sylvie enters the elevator, she tries to eliminate him, but soon realizes that this guy is more powerful than he appears to be. While the pair are in the office trying to find a way to eliminate their enemy, Mobius enlists the help of B-15 to reveal the truth to all TVA agents. During the conversation, He Who Remains reveals that no one will be able to eliminate him, because he already knows absolutely everything that will happen in the future. According to him, even the arrival of Loki and Sylvie at his mansion was an expected move. When he meets Ravonna again, Mobius discovers that, even after discovering that she has been deceived, the woman is still trying to protect TVA, because she believes that the system was created for a greater purpose. The truth is that she refuses to believe that everything she has dedicated years of her life to is just a lie, so she prefers to continue deceiving herself. Now Ravonna's plan is to find out who is really in charge of the place, because only then will she be able to confirm her theory. In his defense, He Who Remains confesses that he used deceptive methods to maintain order, but claims that his mission is legitimate, because without the TVA everything would be destroyed. When asked about his origin, the man reveals that, before the Time Variance Authority existed, a variant of his lived on Earth in the 31st century. At the time, he was a brilliant scientist and discovered that there were universes superimposed on his own. At the same time, other variants also made the same discovery. Over time, the various versions of themselves made contact and shared technology and knowledge, using the best of their universes to improve the others. However, some versions of He Who Remains didn't have good intentions and considered the other universes merely as worlds to be conquered. Thanks to this, all the realities collided with each other, provoking a great war in which each variant had to fight to preserve its own universe and annihilate the others. When all of reality was about to be destroyed, the first variant encountered a creature created from the collision of universes. This creature, known as Alioth, was capable of consuming space-time, so He Who Remains learned to control the beast's power, turning it into a weapon. In this way, the scientist managed to put an end to the multiversal war and isolated his timeline. Finally, he created TVA to manage the flow of time and prevent new branches from being generated. At that moment, Loki and Sylvie discover that, of all their variants, the one in charge of their universe is the least worst. However, Sylvie begins to suspect this story and claims that everything she has heard could be a big lie. So He Who Remains offers his throne to the couple, having spent hundreds of years looking for the right person to take his place. After so long in charge of the universe, the scientist says he's tired, because all he wants to do is leave that lonely life behind. He Who Remains then reveals that, in his entire speech, he lied only once when he said that he knew everything that would happen in the future. The truth is that the man knew everything that would happen until the moment he offered his throne to the couple. From there are countless possibilities for events, so new branches begin to form on the sacred timeline. Now, Sylvie and Loki will have to choose between eliminating He Who Remains so that other variants can start a new multiversal war, or taking his place as commanders of the universe. Immediately, Sylvie stands up to eliminate the scientist, but Loki prevents her from doing so, as he wants to analyze the options before making a decision that could impact the entire universe. At that moment, the goddess of lies becomes convinced that her male variant wants to take the throne and attacks him. When he realizes that this fight will not end, Loki decides to surrender and drops his weapon to try to calm Sylvie down. Even though she's furious, the woman doesn't have the courage to eliminate him because she's in love with him. Then, when she realizes that Loki is no threat, Sylvie drops her sword and decides to kiss him. She then uses the temp pad to send him back to TVA headquarters and then stabs the heart of He Who Remains with her sword. As a result, the sacred timeline begins to branch out more and the TVA agents realize that there is nothing more that can be done. When he discovers what has happened, Loki goes to ask for the help of his allies to contain the coming threat, at which point he realizes that both Mobius and the B-15 have forgotten who he is. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.